thinking about it a bit more, it's probably just going to be a 2-0, especially when HeRoMaRine's already like 3-1 in the group. And I say that is because he's lost a matchup that we didn't expect him to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having lost that, I think HeRoMaRine's very ready to just win, because he can still fight for top of this group.
Yeah, it's always funny. Like at certain points, you're giving the guys, I guess, too much, not credit, but just too much. You're putting a lot on their shoulders, right? It's like, congratulations on being top 4 in Europe. If you lose to anyone else outside of that top 4, are you washed up? Are you done? Like,
well, yeah, that was
annoying.
Clem's issue, right? Like all year long, Clem would like fight against Reno and have like almost like a 50% run rate or so, and he'd like go into a tournament and he'd lose to like Mana or something, like 2-3, and everyone's like, is Clem even capable of being a top tier player? Like, yeah, of course he is, guys. Like he lost to like another one of the European greats. Yeah, it's not Cyril, it's not Reno, but you're allowed to lose. It feels like it's almost like Cyril gave us this unprecedented setup of like, you're just not allowed to lose stuff, and if you lose, you're just never going to be the best, right? And HeRoMaRiNE, he won every single ESL Open Cup, and then it's like, well, if you can't win them all now, he must not be very like, it's such a ridiculous thing to think about, right? But yeah, that's the way the storylines work, I suppose.
Yeah, expectations are quite high. Similar openers, I mean, Factory expands, and then, Command Center, so yeah, Factory expands. It is worth noting that while HeRoMaRiNE is pretty comfortable at that 3-1, surprising, because he lost to Skillus, right, but still comfortable 3-1, MarineLorD is kind of in the do-or-die situation. I mean, he's got to win series, I mean, at least maps to have a chance to make it out, so this is really important to finally turn the table, turn that narrative around. It's no longer I'm getting beat by HeRoMaRiNE all the time. This is actually where I've got to start winning to have a chance in the group. There's a lot of extra pressure for our blue TErran. It's gonna just kind of poke forward here, but seeing as they went for pretty much the same openers, not much to do.
Yeah, very, very standard setup, right? And I like it. Getting up to 2 bases each. These are the fun TvTs where you get to the Marine tank, you get that back and forth, you look for the fight over positions, and not really expecting any twists here either. I was thinking, could maybe MarineLorD pull out some mech or something? I think, yes, he could, but does he need to? And especially on Jack and Nather, it's almost weird. It's like this big map that's almost like you maybe more so want to go mech on this map in like TvZ. I feel like in TvT, the power of mech is being able to defend, and then jump on your opponent's side of the map, like out of nowhere. And the being so open to counterattacks and having more time for your opponent to backstab you, more chance to jump on your 4th base while you try to move out. I feel that really weakens Matt on a map like this one. So definitely feel like I'm expecting to see just bio on bio, Marine tank on Marine tank.
I am expecting it as well, even though I mentioned, like, I think a mech game that doesn't have MarineLorD dying by the, 9-10 minute mark, I think would do well for him. It just is so unlikely that he would get to that point without being at least severely hampered with how HeRoMaRiNE can play out that portion of TvT. And again, just very similar openers, even into the Raven and the tank. I think HeRoMaRiNE knows he's the better player. He knows about their win records, and as always, HeRoMaRiNE's quite confident, I guess, about himself. So the opening, probably a little more defensively minded. MarineLorD maybe would have wanted to do something aggressive. He's got to respect each other, though, when you do open up in such similar ways, to a point where it is more about, like, okay, who takes the slightly riskier option, who goes for that faster 3rd CC. In this case, HeRoMaRiNE going for a much faster 3rd CC, so MarineLorD should be the one to push. And we'll see if he can get anything done, but that 3rd CC, 400 minerals, sounds like a lot. When it comes to the defensive properties of just TvT in general, it's actually totally fine a lot of the time. So I think MarineLorD actually going to get some damage. No, not really.
I mean, he kills the Hellion, right? It's like very non-problematic for HeRoMaRiNE. It's just looking for information, a bit of map control. So he's going to run through Widowmine. He does get the Reaper there, and then we'll make the run. Hellion will chase, and there's a couple of Marines to save the Widowmine. Widowmine's such an odd unit in TvT, isn't it? It's like no one ever really builds them apart from in this one scenario now, but the one time they do, you always run over it, and you always take that big shot onto your early Reaper Hellion. Maybe you take it into your leading pack of Marines or so. It's such an odd unit in that regard for this matchup.
Yeah, it is. I really keep thinking that MarineLorD is going to be the one to push out first, just with his later set up the command center. He's faster to just slightly faster the tank production. He's gonna have 4 to 3 just for like 30, not even 30 seconds, and then faster to the Vikings as well. But HeRoMaRinE is right behind him on all of that production and no movement really whatsoever. HeRoMaRinE, I guess, just moving to make sure his third is safe. I would have expected at least someone to try and move across the map, even just to kind of fake it out, force him to reconsider sending out that third CC. And there's just not much. Which means that all the tiny differences, MarineLorD's later third CC is not being on location quite yet, and then him not having engineering bays researching. He doesn't even have engineering bays, Wardy. Well, that's a problem. MarineLorD has to do a push, and it has to do damage, but the army supplies are really quite similar.
Army supplies and what's in the armies too. Like, both of them have 2 Ravens. HeRoMaRine's down 2 Vikings, but with defender's advantage, it's pretty much going to be an even fight on Vikings all the time. More or less. So let's see. I mean, the good thing here for MarineLorD is he gets the jump on HeRoMaRiNE. He's going to get that first tank just like that, and HeRoMaRiNE will have to pull back and lift and move that third base away. So yeah, just the surprise factor is what's really going to do something here for MarineLorD more than anything else.
No scouting really from HeRoMaRiNE as far as Marines outwards. He had one on the left side, but just really wasn't expecting on the right side. He's actually gonna go for like the counter bust almost, throwing down interference matrix plus auto turrets, plus he's got that concave. He will lose his air army, but pulling the SCVs with this as well. He really wants to clean this up. Is it going to be good enough? He loses 12 SCVs and is barely going to do so. But MarineLorD certainly got that damage done to his opponent's economy.
Yeah, I mean, this was completely fine for MarineLorD. He maybe lost a little bit more at the end here, but it's 2 Ravens for 2 Ravens. It's 4 tanks for 4 tanks. He killed a few extra Vikings. I think that's where the army supply dips down a bit for MarineLorD, but then you kill 12 workers. Your third base is mined, without any harassment on it. So that's where MarineLorD should catch up. Of course, all of this came while he was behind in upgrades, and that's now going to be in effect. So maybe that's where HeRoMaRiNE can still sort of say, okay, well, we've got a bit of an army supply lead, we've got an upgrade lead, I'm in a position to still play this out, even though I gave up those workers.
Yeah, I mean, really, in the current context of things, I don't think 12 workers is like super bad anyways, even if it wasn't necessarily him having an upgrade lead, just because TvT is so great for those comebacks. But there's another thing that HeRoMaRiNE's already hit on, and that's 5 barracks production. One of those things that just it's hard to keep track of, but it's really important. So at a certain point, it's all about tanks and Vikings, right? And then it kind of changes over to if you can get like Marine concaves and Marine harassment, of course, as well. And that's going to go in favor of HeRoMaRiNE, even though the upgrades are going to even up in a second. He may just have better concaves and more opportunities to take the map as MarineLorD finally adds on his reactors to his additional barracks. So again, just slight differences, but things that can certainly make up 12 SCV losses and now only being down by 4 workers with very similar timed 4th bases. Still a very even game with, arguably the longer the game goes, HeRoMaRiNE looking better with the faster upgrades. Yeah, so.
It wouldn't be a first map of today's matches if it didn't set up to go long. And I feel like that's exactly where we're starting to go to, right? Outside of those upgrades, what really is there that's differentiating these 2 players? Really not that much. What's going to be a good way to attack into each other? There really isn't one. So, yeah, we'll see. A lot of this comes down to positioning and, army movement and just trying to capitalize on maybe positions you find as you move around the map. But neither player really wants to go for that just yet, because if they do, they're going to also leave their bases open to attack.
Yep. I mean, I did say arguably about the upgrades, not because, the upgrades don't matter. They absolutely do. 2-2, if he does take an engagement against MarineLorD's 1-1 or 3-3 against 2-2, it would be absolutely huge. But I said arguable because this seems like a game that would go into, well, both of you have all the upgrades anyways. Nothing game deciding happened before all the upgrades finished. And it's more along the lines of who can take the map better and who transitions into Viking Liberator or, perhaps even the Raven meta that we've seen in some more of the passive TvTs. So that's honestly where I'm looking at. This can happen, and it's so funny when it happens because TvT is usually seen as such a stressful, engaging matchup. There's the really combative early game, and the really sick mid game, and then late game there's doom drops, right? And it's also this game can happen where something did happen. There was that push, there was a little bit of a something, but actually it just goes up to 4 and 5 bases pretty easily.
Yeah. And I mean, this sort of map where in TvT, I think you get 4 bases, you get 5 bases. And the contended bases are going to be the 9/3 o'clock bases, right? Those ones that are just sort of left, right side, a bit further forward. Those are the bases that are going to get sieged. Those are the bases that are going to get into trouble. HeRoMaRine's going to make a push down here, and he does kind of catch MarineLorD a little out of position, so he gets his tank sieged up. Wasn't expecting him to just kind of waltz into this position so easily. Now he's got a tank in range as well, so he's going to get a tank kill, and okay, 1 for 1. 1 for 2.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's only one tank firing though now, and MarineLorD, even bullying away the high ground vision means that HeRoMaRiNE really can't stick around for too long. By the way, I'm already anticipating us messing up their names. MarineLorD. Oh god, it's gonna get tough. HeRoMaRiNE actually moving over to the left side. Might have caught MarineLorD once again off guard. On the right side, a tank goes down, actually going really well on the right side. So that's actually a good defense for MarineLorD, who also didn't have to cancel his 5th base this time. Despite it being right in the line of fire, it is still building.
I feel like this is partly the 2-2 as well for HeRoMaRiNE. Helped him out a little bit there in those Marine fights, but yeah, I mean, really didn't lead to anything too differentiating between the players in the end. I mean, here we stand now, maxed out each, and extra command centers just on the way up from MarineLorD. He's just going to keep building those. Both players on the way to 3-3, and yeah, HeRoMaRiNE will get there first. He gets a better siege on this side again. Something about MarineLorD just not able to track this army over here time and time again now.
Yeah, he really lost out. I mean, it was kind of clever as HeRoMaRiNE picked up some of his tanks, but all right, better concave on that high ground, but is it going to be good enough? And tanks already being sieged, pretty crucial point of TvT, and MarineLorD just takes the fight long enough to get a Liberator in place, which will clean this up, push it back, and maybe push it back for real this time. MarineLorD going to leave his tanks to defend this base and his would-be, I guess, 6th command center is looking like. I think one of the biggest problems from these engagements, though, is that not necessarily that MarineLorD's been taking slightly worse ones, it's that it interrupted his upgrades kind of severely. Like, there was maybe a 30-second difference, and now it's like a 40-50-second difference. No.
Yep. Yeah, and maybe a bit slow on the 5th base, too. Not sure how much impact that necessarily has. It's kind of a... It's still been okay fights for MarineLorD, you're right. It's just the external things that are becoming a feature. MarineLorD's been making good use of the air control, at least using those Vikings and then hence the Liberators to do well. And now he's going to jump at this army of HeRoMaRiNE. HeRoMaRiNE wasn't ready. The Marines back away. 3 tanks. Thank you very much. And now HeRoMaRiNE goes running with the tank disadvantage. Can he do something on this left-hand side? Tank in position. The Marines on the way back over. So it would seem like very little can be done here. Good defense. And now the Viking can't build enough from HeRoMaRiNE. And that's absolutely what he needs, because that's why he's not being able to push into anywhere at times. And why he's being pushed back because of that Liberator. But now you're building Vikings to play catch-up while MarineLorD's running at you, having just cleaned out tanks and a bunch of Marines. It's kind of a scary moment to be trying to make a switch into air.
It absolutely is. I mean, it's also kind of a requirement. Like, if he gets pinned back here and then keeps getting pinned back, the Liberator would actually be the death of him. You know, this one Liberator. So he's going to try maybe to sacrifice Marines, pull back, even pull back his 3rd CC. But this is a really powerful blow by MarineLorD, as he not only took that fight, but I think he recognized, like, oh, that was a really easy fight. Where's the rest of your units? We didn't take any damage to the left side. Actually grabs the orbital, is looking for another base. I don't think he's going to be able to grab it, but very powerful blow. One that's recoverable if HeRoMaRiNE just is able to break out at some point or do a somewhat big doom drop, or yeah, take advantage of the air again, right? But nonetheless, still giving MarineLorD good leads in the economy.
Yeah, this is really great. That base denial is massive, and the only thing I would say is maybe he could work his way like down and right to get out of here, but that does open up the left side of the map, so I can appreciate he wants to stick around here. Unsieges just as now the movement comes in. Viking count is a favorable count for HeRoMaRiNE, but he's also down 2 Ravens in the game, so if they could come into play, something to look at there as well. Is good strike from MarineLorD, but HeRoMaRiNE, he can still play his way back into this, and I'm sure he will at least put a good effort of it on.
You know, it really is worth noting that MarineLorD didn't just get faster starports, and he's getting even more starports now than his opponent. He also did it while, like, not getting additional barracks. Like, he was so ready to go into this portion of the game, but if he ever did lose his Marines, it'd be hard to replace. But doesn't matter when you have your tanks covered by the Viking, Raven, Liberator, and you are actually the one scaring your opponent, keeping your opponent back at home. Does MarineLorD know about the right base? He actually doesn't. So that's kind of a freebie, I guess, for HeRoMaRiNE, as he still is mining pretty darn well off of 2, now back to 3 bases with his 3rd back on the ground. But still even enough, right? It could still go either way for one big battle.
Oh, tank on this right side actually gets a couple nice shots off, to be fair. It's going to get cleaned out. Yeah, MarineLorD not known by that right side to Shin, because I do think there was at least some potential for him to move like down and right from where he used to be, and to maybe not deny it in full, but then HeRoMaRine's got to make a decision of does he counter or does he defend, and in this case now, he just had to kind of like relocate, right? So he, again, mine for free basically. His anti-arm missile goes down. That might be the game changer for the Vikings, as the Raven didn't get to do anything else.
Jeez, Marines wanting to get involved, but tanks' numbers are just too large. All right, the tanks have to pull back, and now the Marines jumping on top of the remaining tanks. That's awfully dangerous, though. They're looking a little bit thin. They want to be plentiful to protect this planetary and the building command center. But the Vikings actually went really well for HeRoMaRiNE. It's always so funny. It's no doubt that anti-armor missile is important, but with the way that Vikings, they overkill and they're just slow shooters, it's like usually not what really determines it. Unless it's like the stupidest, like the closest battle ever. In that case, HeRoMaRiNE did take a pretty commanding lead, but MarineLorD having 5 starports instantly bounces back and is back on the front lines. In fact, his tanks into a really brutal position. He's going to get that cancel on the forward base, and that planetary is also going to be under fire. This is going on, too. MarineLorD is just happily mining away, absolutely no pressure, and he sees that. He has 3 center towers. There's no reason for him to focus on anything except pushing farther into HeRoMaRiNE's bases.
Viking on Viking fight breaks out again. Just going to continue to see a lot of these Vikings going down. MarineLorD winning out in the skies. And now again, you're on top of one of these bases, and I mean, in the end, this base goes down, right? Maybe put another couple tanks on it, and eventually you just can't keep it repaired forever. SCV is going to try and get a bit of a better wrap around, but this is a tough little position because, again, MarineLorD's just expanded everywhere in the meantime. He's got the entire bottom left side. I mean, the only base he has left to take on his half of the map is that bottom right that he just put a double command center on. So he's going to start that expansion up.
I mean, HeRoMaRiNE's going to have to try and go for the top left, and just hope that it kind of stays hidden for a little while. And granted, I mean, the farther you go out in the maps, the more you're really going to drag your opponent, farther away from one place. If HeRoMaRiNE takes the top left, maybe he opens up the opportunity to go into the bottom right. But right now, HeRoMaRiNE is just defending. So I'm talking about like these potential army movements, trying to catch your opponent off guard. And there's really none of that. HeRoMaRiNE is just purely focused on defending, which seems like it's just going to inevitably go poorly for him. He is losing the air battle, 18 Vikings to 13. So MarineLorD's still in the lead here, even after losing a couple awkwardly. Maybe it's changing now, but the Liberator's actually on top of a couple of tanks trying to kill those. Actually, yeah, it's going to be HeRoMaRiNE winning the Viking War, but it's for now. It's always for now because MarineLorD's economy is so great.
You can win the war, but then your opponent comes at you with a second army. What are you going to do about that? The income difference is huge, and that is really just, I mean, look at this, 4 Vikings and 4 Libs at a time. MarineLorD still has gas in the bank, right? He's got so many CCs building up here. He can maybe start to trade out some SCVs for more army supply space, so his armies will be larger. You see, HeRoMaRiNE going to move over to the left-hand side. I mean, he's got to make some plays somewhere. He can't just play defensively forever, because if you only play defensively, you're probably not going to get back into the game. You're not going to start making moves that can help you to win. A Widow Mine just brings a bunch of Marines to low HP ahead of this fight, and yeah, for whatever reason, that Widow Mine's that actually gets a pretty fun connection.
On the bottom actually... Right. Yeah, he opened up the right side. MarineLorD was so busy recuperating from kind of the awkward battles. He was down in Vikings. His tanks were forced to re-siege elsewhere. That HeRoMaRiNE is finally breaking through. I mean, that drop didn't do much, but it definitely pulled the army out of position. Now a couple of orbitals might go down. The planetary is under fire. Once again, the Viking War being critical, and it is being won by MarineLorD. He just has so many more Vikings than his opponent, just to bring them forward. But, oh, okay, well, yep, there you go. And Liberators as well. I was going to say the tanks could still fire, but not too much longer.
Liberators? Okay, the Liberators are just about protected by tanks, so they will take a lot of damage, and they will eventually... Oh my god, they don't go down. That's a lot of Marines to give up and then not clear it out. This planetary fortress is still alive. Even if this right side base goes down, though, it's still the bottom right that MarineLorD has, and HeRoMaRiNE does not have the top left. So something else to look at here is MarineLorD's also been trading better along the way. I mean... Part of the problem here is maybe just a game. MarineLorD has 80 SCVs and HeRoMaRiNE has 70, so at points his army is just that a little bit bigger.
I was wondering if maybe he should have done this sooner, but I think right now it is all about HeRoMaRiNE just finding his opponent out of position. Like, he can't really win the air battles. He won maybe a couple technically, but MarineLorD's economy was just boosting that. He's up to 26 now, which honestly might be overkill. His opponent's not actually combating him on the Viking anymore, and he might not have recognized that. So he's gonna have 27 Vikings that, hell yeah, they'll kill medevac super fast, but they won't help you against 57 Marines against your 15 Marines, right? And that's something that MarineLorD might now be identifying. He has 9 tanks, but where are they positioned? Only 1 there, but in a really nice choke. So HeRoMaRinE has to respect that and leave. But make no mistake, if he does that again, maybe there's less of a choke, or maybe it's the left side open. Suddenly he's grabbing orbitals, or he's grabbing Vikings that are being miscontrolled over the air.
The Vikings going up against each other. A lot of shots going out here, but it's just MarineLorD so much more. And HeRoMaRinE just kind of try to chase them, but then running into tanks. And now it feels like HeRoMaRinE is permanently at a 20 or 30 supply disadvantage. This feels like that has been the case forever at this point. Yep. As MarineLorD moves his way around, a little bit sloppy, losing a couple units each time again, but yeah, maybe these Marines can do something now. It's a lot of tanks still, even if he split up well, but he is split up extremely well, and he gets all of the tanks. Big win for HeRoMaRinE, gives him some chances as he gets on top of this orbital.
I thought he underestimated the tanks, honestly. The left side firing made that look like it was going to be a mistake, but it was actually right on point. That is the power of having so many more Marines. If the tanks are in a choke, that's a no-brainer. Of course that goes for MarineLorD, but if they're not, yeah, the Vikings can't really help out. Now, that said, Marines are not great at breaking planetaries. So, you know, they'd love to carry more momentum here, but it's kind of being stopped by just pure Liberator. That is all Liberators. My God, I'm not even sure that's actually a defense. The Marines are going to take out quite a few. Planetary is finally getting involved in the action as well. Yeah, but still ultimately the better trade for MarineLorD, right? Because he has been mining so much more throughout this game.
That was like such an expensive defense. Like, how many Liberators went down just to some Marines? That's very expensive, but of course MarineLorD has the money to kind of afford it, and still moving out over the right side.
It's actually kind of crazy. If HeRoMaRinE had lost one less command center, sorry, and actually had the top left mining this entire time, imagine these trades, but he's actually like remaxing with Marines and not just, you know, steadily losing supply over time. Could have been a much different game, but it still seems like he is the one bleeding out too much. He finally has the top left. That is fantastic, and theoretically he can take some decent fights when it comes to the ground war, because so much of MarineLorD's army is in air. But it is supposed to be the better army. You know, all that I think MarineLorD really has to do is get his tank count up a little bit better again. Or go for Mass Liberator, because apparently that's his current plan. Mass Liberator against Mass Marine.
Like, I mean, I guess if you just have like a few tanks behind it, it's going to be fine, right? But I feel like you could kind of cut down on a couple of the Liberators at this point. Either way, I mean, it's still a MarineLorD kind of game right now. I mean, where's HeRoMaRinE even really mining from? Top left is a fresh base, and that's about it. So you kind of mine one fresh base. In fairness, MarineLorD's base have been up a while too, but he's also just established the bottom right side again, so he gets that up and running. And HeRoMaRinE is constantly being pushed back, and this feels like the push where maybe you just have to stop it at some point as HeRoMaRinE, yeah, because otherwise it's just going to keep coming. It's going to siege up again and again, and well, there go the Marines, and that's going to be it for game 1. MarineLorD is going to get up to a 1-0 in the top left-hand side. It is our blue TErran, who is up 1-0, MarineLorD.
In the bottom right is the red TErran for Mouse Esports. He is HeRoMaRinE. Yeah, ultimately ending in 2-0s though. So it's like great first game. Seems it could be back and forth, and then kind of goes down afterwards. Hopefully it doesn't happen here. I would love to have a 2-1 scenario for either player. I talked about how it's a little more important for MarineLorD, and you know, it certainly is, and the fact that he's actually got a game in a really straight up macro game too. Hopefully he's getting a lot of confidence. There's HeRoMaRinE. Yeah, he could afford to lose the series, but you know, our crazy high expectations could only possibly be surpassed by HeRoMaRinE's own expectations of himself, and I can pretty much guarantee he wouldn't be happy about losing this TvT. So, you know, luckily this isn't one group played over the entire day, right? Because then that type of mentality can really spiral. But anyways, it's not something that HeRoMaRinE would be happy about. So Lightshade maybe bringing in a little more aggression, maybe actually bringing it to MarineLorD a little bit more in the early game. HeRoMaRinE's, we know him as the macro guy, the defensive guy, but when it comes to a lot of mirror matchups, you can't just be one style, right? You're always going to be able to bring something in. I could see HeRoMaRinE changing it up. It was a lot of passive play, a surprising amount, I would say, for the first 6 minutes of that last game.
Yeah, nothing happened, right? It was extremely just sit back, And then we had one push from MarineLorD, and then we kind of sat back for a little while again, and then we really got going. And then it was kind of non-stop, of course, but yeah, definitely possible. You know, especially TvT really becomes that matchup, I think, where if you get on the map and you can stay on the map aggressively, there's so much to gain from that because there are so many openings, there are so many opportunities for, you know, stuff you can get done. I think that's a very cool way to look at it and give a lot of cool games and so on.
Well, as much as I would have loved that to have happened, different game. Seems like it's not that different. Wouldn't mind. 1-1-1. You know, we'll see who gets a faster third command center, and then that's kind of it. Oh, no drops, no proxies, no slight bit of greed with like a 1-Rex expand, which makes a lot of sense on Light. I don't even think you would do that. But all right, something different. Last time Marines were here to stop the Reapers. And they both survive? Okay. A little bit different. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. One Reaper gets out of there. Not really much to talk about, is there, ZG? It's just a very very similar setup. We see a Cyclone apiece from both of them, and just safe. Defensive, I guess. Maybe both of them worried a little bit about maybe some air aggression coming this time around.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, typically if you can, you don't have to go into the Cyclone. You don't really want to get that tank count up nice and fast because Cyclones are fantastic for the early game defense. They aren't really going to be helpful after like 5 or 6 minutes, you know, unless you're playing a particular style. So it is funny that they both do that, defensively set up, but they both did it, so no one's really getting any leads from it. And then into those Ravens. I guess what we can talk about while we wait for them to actually move out and do something is the map, you know? We've seen so many TvZs, it feels like, on this map, and we can talk all about the concaves in that matchup. But for TvT, I do wonder how this is going to play as far as like where they're going to try and direct their pathway, right? Like how are they going to move into each other's bases? How are they going to expand? There's not nearly as much room, you know, as far as the dimensions goes. It's a smaller map. As far as the rush distance, it's a much smaller map. So a lot of places where tanks on the high ground could be abusive, but then not so many avenues of like haha gotcha moments like last game.
Yeah. I remember thinking that these little like areas that are raised in the middle, right, they are super good for like pushes, but then where are you really going to go from there, right? Like it doesn't really give you access straight on top of a base, but it does support like a push into a base. So it's, yeah, I know what you mean. It's like you can kind of get away with any kind of expansion format, right? I think they're probably both going to take the triangle third and kind of expand toward each other because that's kind of a TvT thing, right? Because then you kind of also cover your main base from getting sieged up, and that's very important in this matchup. But from there, fourth base is really open. You can go down, you can go to the right. It becomes a very free choice, and yeah, in that kind of regard, I actually haven't seen a lot of TvT on this map. If I'm going to be honest, I know it's been around for like 4 weeks now, but it's not a matchup that I see that much of anyway. And then on Lightshade, just very, very rare occurrence. So.
I guess it is partially because like just TvT, a little bit more of the. There's so many PvPs, you know.
Yeah.
Apparently, just not a TvC.
We know why.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, maybe Latin America, especially versus Kelazur, I think, did play on this. We played twice, so I would have expected it.
Probably.
But yeah. Otherwise, not so much. I think we'll see more of it as NA rolls around with a more TErran representation over there. But regardless, still similar build orders, guys. They both swapped off to Viking production from the reactor. This time, very similar on the engineering base. That was supposed to be one of MarineLorD's weaknesses. But he actually took the better fight with his Marines. Finding those tanks like he did really did. Just it didn't matter if he had upgrades or not, but this time it is pretty close. And then, yeah, I thought there was a difference, and I think that difference is HeRoMaRinE Stim is a little bit slower. that's it, though. I don't know if it's going to impact this engagement, as HeRoMaRinE is making moves. Hopefully, maybe trying to do the exact same thing MarineLorD did to him, but MarineLorD's actually really well set up.
So just for reference, this is the second time Lightshade has been played in TvT.
Oh, well, there you go.
In this season of Europe, at least.
Oh, okay.
So obviously, not like ever. Not in the whole
I was like,
team, yeah, but in Europe, it's the first time we really get it, or the second time we really get to see this. So yeah, it's definitely not one of the more popular choices. Pretty much every other map has been played a couple of times. So
I was kind of surprised at how well Lightshade was received, but the terrain is so different from Submarine. Submarine's not obnoxious because it's short, although that is sometimes part of it. It's obnoxious because it's so just chokes and hills and avenues, and it's uncomfortable. But
Well, this map really reminded me of Acropolis for a long time. You know, especially with the base layout.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize this map was so short. I remember in the TLMC, it's not something that ever came up. Nobody ever said this map felt short. Back when this map was first kind of going through the testing and the competitions that go on, but to pick ladder maps. And yeah, it's kind of surprised me the last couple of weeks here and everyone going about how short it is. I'm like, man, I mean, I get it. I can see it now. But like, without being told, I didn't really like pay attention to that, right? Because I just see it as Acropolis.
I'm going to brag and say I think I'm the only caster that actually looks up the race distances.
Yeah,
Immediately, I was like, this is short. Oh my God. Because that's actually what I did, okay? Before I just go off being like, I'm the best, right? Is that I looked at it and I was like, it looks pretty big. Hold on, guys. Let me check. And then I went and looked. And I was like, oh no, it's actually like really, really short. So it's weird how these feelings, right? And so much of a StarCraft is going off of feelings. But then you look at the actual stats and you're like, oh, okay, gotcha. Anyways.
I wonder if it's just the way, like, where do you push into, right? Because you come, yeah, I like natural to natural, especially. I feel like if you got to get there, you got to go up like a ramp with some rocks and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting, the whole feelings thing. It's like, I feel this map's kind of big. And it's like, nope, it's really small. You're like, cool. Never would have known. Hey, we're getting some action. Some fights on this right-hand side as everything's kind of even, but it's HeRoMaRinE give and chase. And he is going to get here. You know what? He doesn't have his combat shields just yet.
Yeah. That is so awkward. I was going to point out the exact same thing. No combat shields, and he got painted orange. You would think not to take this fight, but I guess he had such confidence in the fact that he was chasing MarineLorD, right? He knew his tanks were going to be later to siege. They could be actually focused down. And I guess he knew his tanks were just right behind him, and they were going to be able to safely siege. Now, that would have turned around, I think, if the Ravens had like all their auto turrets on those tanks. Maybe it's more of a trade, certainly. But aggressive maneuver there from HeRoMaRinE. Now everything is evened up, though. Combat shields, upgrades, and it is HeRoMaRinE with that supply lead up by 16 in the army and pushing into that third. It's not quite enough to just instantly, like, you know, bot MarineLorD, and actually MarineLorD Cyclone doing something here. That's nice. But it now is HeRoMaRinE the driving seat.
Yeah, this was a big win for HeRoMaRinE. Those tanks got so much damage during the fight, and, well, MarineLorD's going to break down, and, yeah, does he want to chase in the tanks? I don't think so. There's only really tanks left. There's a few Marines which is going to stop him from dropping on top of them, but he's kind of cleaning this up, and if he unloads these Marines, he could maybe have made a move right there, but obviously he didn't quite know the other tanks were unsieged. MarineLorD trying to fight it back, but definitely HeRoMaRinE, like you say, in the driver's seat and kind of controlling the pacing of this one. Although we do see the Viking War kind of going back and forth. He's going to chase forward now. He is going to catch a tank, and the other tank's not siege. He's going to get both of them. Now has to fall back to his own siege tanks to realistically keep on fighting.
Yeah, nice focus fire there, and then, you know, two really well-positioned tanks, too, to fall back to. That one of the high ground living is a pretty big deal. HeRoMaRinE is moving on to better things here. He's got his planetary up and ready to defend, so no longer having to worry about that side. He still had the momentum for a little while, and he's used it not to defeat MarineLorD, but keep his momentum, keep his army supply lead, and then add on his starports faster. So actually kind of the reverse roles of last game. And MarineLorD, it's not his job to actually get out on the map. It's going to be difficult. He loses a tank. He's going to see HeRoMaRiNE's attack to the bottom. Actually, HeRoMaRiNE's not going to bother doing it. Thought that'd be a 1-2 punch, but it is not. MarineLorD even taking the opportunity to chase this down a little bit. He's got the upgrade lead.
Yeah, I was going to say upgrade lead lets him do it, right? You have 2-2 against 1-1. You can't really turn around for that fight. So HeRoMaRiNE has to go scoppering away, and the next thing you know, he's going to get his own 2-2, but MarineLorD a little bit ahead in 3-3 then. We're going to be maxed out against EG on, 4 bases each. 5th bases kind of being considered. MarineLorD's actually going to have a faster 5th CC ready to move out than HeRoMaRiNE will. And now neither player really has map control again, so we're going to get back into a very even out game. Not really advantageous for either side. Many advantages here or there, but nothing really too distinct between the two of them.
I do like the way that HeRoMaRiNE is setting up better, though. I mean, getting into Vikings already, adding on the ship weapons as opposed to +2 vehicle weapons. The vehicle weapons is so strange because this is actually a pretty effective upgrade because it also affects the splash of the tank.
Yeah.
But it is funny though, because it seems like it doesn't usually it's not what determines the fight, right? So like how fast the tank siege, is the concave better for your opponent? And of course, do they have Liberators and Vikings? They have vision over you, which is definitely what HeRoMaRinE is more so looking towards. So I actually like that he's upgrading +1 ship as opposed to +2 vehicle. But now we're getting to that classic tale of like someone having maybe technically a stronger composition, but the other person having a more mobile composition and lots of Marines to pounce on an undefended base. Actually, speaking of finding a base, it's undefended. Down in the bottom left.
Yeah, MarineLorD having that slightly faster 5th, but that don't matter much if you can't really take it. You know, you're right. I really like what HeRoMaRinE is doing with the starports. He's already going into Liberators. He's getting that Effusion core so you can think about Liberator range. These are all things which will make his army better for the later game, and MarineLorD kind of has the money to do it, right? You look at that gas bank, I think he could absolutely drop 2-3 more starports, try and prepare, and there he is. He's going to start doing it now. He's going to go 4 starports. So yeah, that's what he really needed to do. He's rich enough to make that switch, and he's got to make it because otherwise he just gives HeRoMaRinE an advantage for no reason.
Yeah, and on such a short map too, like it would be kind of scary to lose that momentum, be pushed back into your own base, and then they are also winning the air war, right? That'd be a faster end to the game than last game. You know, it took a long time for MarineLorD to actually finally cut HeRoMaRinE off, but be even faster, more dramatic of a turnaround on this map. So 3-3 is almost done for MarineLorD. But with Liberators and tanks both being available for HeRoMaRinE, it's not like you can really totally use it. HeRoMaRinE is going to back away with his own Marines, let his tanks do most of the work. The Liberators have been taken down. The concave actually a bit too good for MarineLorD with the upgrades. No, not quite. And he broke through more than I thought he would, but actually at the end of the day, not worth it.
Yeah, I thought he was actually going to start cleaning up everything, but he just kind of teetered off at the end. And during this, the Vikings just kill so much. So MarineLorD comes out down a lot of supply. We'll have to put that bank into usage and get going. He needs to do it right now as well, because you can see the Liberators building up here. Once those Libs are on the map, they can control areas. They can push into defensive siege lines. And once you can do that as HeRoMaRinE, MarineLorD ain't holding on for much longer.
Well, he's not just adding on Vikings. He's actually going into more of the Raven play. Like I mentioned last game, we've seen how effective it can be. It can feel almost trolly, you know, like you're facing it on the ladder or you're watching someone who's clearly in the league using it. You're like, oh, they're just having fun. Not really. Like it's actually super, super impactful. The fact that you can anti-armor missile twice need be, right, to blanket the entire army, and then interference matrix like half of their tanks. Maybe even more, depending on how many Ravens you really want to get. Yeah, it's so punishing, and it happens so quickly too, with how instant these spells are. So I don't know if I've ever seen quite this scenario though. Like it feels like in the Korean TvTs, it is usually one person being desperate, moving around more with the Marines, another person being like wall Ravens. But now we're in a situation where it is Liberator Viking versus Viking Raven, and it's like which one is going to be better here?
Yeah, I kind of like the Ravens, but I like the Ravens if you give it like 5 minutes from now.
Yeah.
Right now, it feels like 4 Ravens are going to get shut down and drop like a couple matrixes. It's been like, well, that was cool, but did it really change much? Not really. I mean, just look at them. But there you go. 1 Raven shot down, 2nd Raven shot down. Boom, just absolutely nothing. So yeah, I kind of like the Liberator Viking at the moment, Zombie Grab. If MarineLorD could find a way to buy a bunch of time, but he just ain't. He's losing 23 SCVs to Liberators across the map as well, I believe, and that's just so much damage he's taking while he's losing his army. He's getting pushed back, and he's not realistically in a position to keep on fighting.
You know, if I hadn't asked that question right before that engagement, I wouldn't have asked the question. You know, like, clearly it is going better for HeRoMaRinE, but I do think that is also just a little bit of the awkwardness. You know, MarineLorD thought he had a chance. He wanted to pounce off of his opponent, and it just really wasn't the opportunity he was hoping, and then it spiraled from there because he has to constantly retreat. He can't get any decent engagement. He can't get his Ravens to wrap around actually interference matrix, anything that's important, so he could jump on it. And even if he could find an opportunity, even if his Ravens could do what they wanted to, he's now down 30 supply, although it's actually not an army supply, but it's still not a very pretty situation. Liberators once again forced to siege. Marines are starting to bite through the tanks. Interference matrix came down on one of them. The last couple of Marines desperately trying to take down the last couple of tanks. Not really working out though.
MarineLorD has still done nothing about the Liberator on the top side that has like 16 kills. Yep, I mean that happens as well. These Vikings just land and obliterate. I mean, MarineLorD just obviously doesn't have enough left over right now. He's going to try and hold on with this planetary, but the planetary falls, and Marines show up from HeRoMaRinE as well, so he's just going to keep on taking this fight, and now MarineLorD has 35 workers remaining. And I think for the first time today, Zombie Grub, we're going to see ourselves at a 1-1 position.
Yes, no 2-0 in this TvT. HeRoMaRinE
really played it from there. I mean, going into that starport setup and the air control, and we talked about how important that was in game number 1 as well on MarineLorD's side, and this time, the last time, it was reversed.
Placement in the bottom left as the red TErran. He is HeRoMaRinE.
Save a few minerals kind of thing, right? So you just feel like you don't need the wall off. You want to take that risk, then you can take that risk. Maybe feels like on this map the wall off is detrimental in some way. I don't necessarily think that's the case on Pillars of Gold. It's not really in reach of many siege positions. Is it maybe in reach of like a siege behind like the forward third mineral line? And so he doesn't want to wall the ramp.
I think it is, but it's usually not that problematic, to be honest. It feels like it's been a while since I've seen like really powerful attacks like that in Europe. Actually, I actually can think of a lot in North America, but
same here. Just trying to come up with reasons, if I'm gonna be honest.
No, I think you're right. I think he is just like, it might actually be because Pillars of Gold has that kind of second defense, which is the natural ramp, right? So some maps don't have a natural ramp, some do, and in that way, like Pillars of Gold has proven to be like a map, for instance, where in PvP you actually might have people go for a gateway expand. It is just a little more of defensive property. So we're super overanalyzing because the rest of this match is going along pretty swimmingly, pretty similar again. But yeah, it looks like the wall or not wall isn't really going to be super important. You save a couple of minerals, great, fantastic. And apparently, since you guys like following each other's leads, these slight differences are kind of important.
Maybe HeRoMaRinE is just like, you know what, I get it. We're going to play another third game here. It's going to be kind of passive. The casters are going to have to talk about the map again, but it's Pillars of Gold. It's not a new one. So I'll give them something else to talk about for the first few minutes and, just help them out and make up for these very passive, absolutely nothing happening openings.
Yeah. You know what, though? We could have talked, I think there is a lot to talk about for the last game that in another universe, another casting pair, we would have not have even mentioned this applied. Last game, Raven versus Vikings. I do think that the pacing was just way off for MarineLorD and what he wanted to do, but I can also see how what MarineLorD was trying to do could have worked. I think including Ravens with the more mobile army actually can be very effective. They are mobile. They got a speed boost a while ago, right? And their downside is that they're hard to use. So no TErran really loves using them. So if in a perfect world, MarineLorD actually got more of a back and forth, went left to right type of game, I think he could have used the Ravens to open up opportunities, say, get out of here, 2-3 tanks, I'm going to bust this base. But what happened was just so dramatic. It happened all at once. He lost a terrible fight running into Viking Liberator tank, and then there was no recovery because he was the one that had to retreat. If he's in control, I think it's a little bit different. But just worth mentioning because it could be something that we see in the future. As we continue seeing experiments with the Mass Raven style, or we can continue seeing these two guys get to super late game, right? But it felt like it had more potential to me, anyways, and then it just got stopped way short of its expectation of itself. So third CC to third CC, man, they like the macro.
Yeah, we are one Reaper down, 5 minutes and 17 seconds deep on Pillars of Gold, and I think this is the first time MarineLorD's even come across the map, honestly. He's seen... It is the first time he's come across the map. He's seen nothing until now. And he still won't see anything because he's obviously not going to go running up the ramp. He's just checking around. He avoided the Widow Mine. Even the little things aren't even happening. Oh, Zombie Grub, Widow Mine.
No.
Of course not. Of course not.
No.
God, how dare we expect something to happen in this TvT before at least 8 minutes?
I'll say this is kind of interesting, but maybe not. Oh, he's gonna back it up into the Widow Mine.
Whoa!
Wow, really?
Oh my God. Really? And now he knows the Widow Mine's there as well because he saw it lock onto the Reaper.
Dude, that was surprisingly sick.
Yeah, it was right. I'm just trash talking the opening of this TvT, and meanwhile, the sickest thing ever just happens, and all of a sudden.
What I was going to mention is that MarineLorD has once again slightly delayed his stim in favor of faster barracks, which was something he changed from first game to second, but it really is such a small detail in the grand scheme of things with TvT and the amount of splash that occurs here. It's I mean, there's a reason, right? Like, I do think that the faster Marines are going to be a bit better than necessarily having that, like, 10-second advantage on Stim, but we'll see. Stim does give you the mobility. It gives you the pounce. But Combat Shield is usually, like, the real critical upgrade in TvT when it comes to surviving tank fire. So it's usually what we're more waiting towards as we just continue waiting. What's the saying? Hurry up and wait. There we go. That's what it is.
This Reaper Hellion Cyclone squad has been really good at killing Marines. Gets another couple there as he actually gets damage on the Cyclone. That should win him the duel. Well, this is the other 2 units, but hey, he killed the Cyclone off. It's one of the more expensive units amongst all of this, so.
It is. MarineLorD has actually managed to grab himself a slight worker lead, a decent army supply lead because of slaughtering the Marines earlier and then grabbing the Cyclone. Like, he is winning all the little micro battles, which is pretty cool. Especially because you don't see the Cyclone usually play that big of a part, but it even is kind of keeping tabs on what HeRoMaRinE is doing. And then the rest, I guess, goes to maybe some Marine fodder sent out in the map. So Marine that has a supply depot actually off to the right. Thought that was Marine at first. Nope. Whereas HeRoMaRinE has covered one of the locations, one of the attack paths of the Widow Mine, and then Center Towers, man. And now they're going to know, like, all right, on to Armories and on to 4th CC. 4th CC at 8 minutes, man.
Yep. That's
how you do it.
That's the kind of game we're watching right now.
All right.
4th CC, 1-1 upgrades will finish very just. They just want to play the later stages, you know? That's as simple as it is.
Mm-hmm.
They're happy to, they don't want to kind of get aggressive early. They feel the other guy is good defensively. It is weird though, because you do still usually see some early game action, right? Like, you usually see some harassment, maybe a liberator, maybe a little bit of attempt to medevac drop something, even a bit more interaction with like the Reaper Hellion stage of the game. But yeah, it really has just been nothing but building bases, and you know, these guys just like their macro. I mean, 11 Marines died for HeRoMaRinE. I actually think that number's kind of impressive considering how everything's been going.
Right, yeah. That is what the armor supply difference is, so that's pretty important. It's extra funny for me because it usually comes down to one person taking that slightly faster command center, either 3rd or 4th, and then that's where you're like, ooh, they took the bigger risk. Ooh, they kind of got ahead a little bit there, but they're really doing similar timings and everything, even similar counts of units. Actually, MarineLorD did just add in 2 more Vikings. Oh, he's just like adding in more Vikings. My bad. So I was like, oh, it's 8 to 8. No, he swapped back into Viking control, so that's only going to leave him with 2 medevacs. But man, considering how much about the last 2 games have been about Viking control, I do not mind this much at all. It might get awkward if it's pure Marine battles, but if he's going to find this position, he can actually keep it with his Vikings winning out the war, taking out the Ravens first. Anti-air missile coming down. MarineLorD, my god, actually a pretty nice attack to start things off.
Yeah, he gets into a really good spot. He got a couple of matrixes down to help him push in, and he's obviously in range of this base. Problem is, if this base lifts off, you're suddenly talking about it being in range of Vikings, right? So the Vikings are just going to get damage on it as well. Okay, well, this is really good here so far for MarineLorD. He's taking that army supply lead. He got a good jump on that fight, and yeah, he took down a Raven really quickly, which is a big part of it. Is now we have a push in. Tank coverage is pretty good, but then the tanks from behind from HeRoMaRinE will get some kills, and that's pretty big. Cleaning out some tanks is a big win, but he has to give up Marines to do so.
Yeah, that was still worthwhile. You know, that was one of those things that you learn through a lot of TvT practice, how to actually be able to move your tanks forward when you're the one being pinned back, when they have the Viking control, when they have a decent number of tanks. That was kind of a masterful way to get out of like a bad scenario so that it looks like it's actually okay. When honestly, a bunch of other Terrans would have just continued taking damage and eventually been forced to lift off and just fallen farther behind. As it is, didn't have to lift off at all, finishes planetary and moves his tanks into a more secure location. He's got to cancel that Center Tower is a little bit bold in the first place, but now it's coming down to Viking control again.
I mean, MarineLorD behind this has already expanded to a 5th base. Like, not just started, like, the command center is done. So he's already got a 5th base position that he's defending with this push out. And that's just something, I mean, HeRoMaRinE's not thinking about a 5th command center. He's trying to get a Sensor Tower up and all of this, and MarineLorD is just really running away with, like, a lot of what's going on behind the scenes here. You know, 2 more starports on the way down. He's starting up lib production, 3 upgrade start. Those are the things, that's like a lot of different things that MarineLorD's getting ahead in.
And I feel like some of this stuff can be stopped if just one person, or well, in this case, HeRoMaRinE, did pick up 16 Marines and 2 medevacs, right? Like that would have been an easy bot before it's a planetary, but because everything has been so focused on defense, and then also so focused on Viking production. There really is not an opportunity to be out on the map, and I'm thinking MarineLorD took advantage of that far greater than HeRoMaRinE did. Because HeRoMaRinE isn't even getting his 5th on location. He's building it pretty far away.
Vikings, so they supported properly by these tanks. They are, so the Vikings will hold out for a little while for these Liberators to deal some damage. In the end, it's actually very close. There's more Vikings there for MarineLorD than I thought there were. It's very close in the Viking war in the end, but he loses out, but he can save the Liberators. He's already picked off some tanks, and game MarineLorD just backs away into what is grown into a bit of a bigger bank, has some money to spend, and maybe just looks for another position. Obviously, for HeRoMaRinE, at some point, you've got to break out toward a 5th base location, right? Whereas MarineLorD already has that, so maybe that's when MarineLorD will find another chance to strike.
I mean, HeRoMaRinE should be taking, I thought, the middle left. I think that is where he's going to be taking it, but MarineLorD at least see it. He's at a Marine kind of keeping tabs. More starports coming down for MarineLorD, more command centers coming down for HeRoMaRinE, both of them finishing up their upgrades, yet once again HeRoMaRinE going for the faster ship weapons. This, still, I like that more. But we'll see if the engagements go differently. There could even be a timing for MarineLorD with his ground army, honestly. His upgrade lead is, it's enough. If he's going to posture like this, it is enough to find an opportunity. That should be difficult to do with the amount of tanks that HeRoMaRinE has. So both into the Viking game, and is so much stronger right now for MarineLorD. He's got 5 starports, adding on reactors too. Like, ugh, it's great.
That's the fusion core from HeRoMaRinE, so you can try and set up a little bit better. I mean, basically Liberator range, right? MarineLorD's already on the way to that, so keeping that advantage. And yeah, like I said, at some point HeRoMaRinE has to push out for the 5th base. That's what he's going to try and do. And MarineLorD's already on top of it, moving around the left-hand side. And gets seen. He decides to back away. Looks like HeRoMaRinE will at least get base 5 up and running.
Now, HeRoMaRinE did send out a drop, but I guess deciding it really wasn't worth it. And it's really not. At this point, all the planetaries are set up on the fringe bases, and unless you can somehow surprise them by going up the middle, like drops of Marines is not going to work out. You're going to need to bring your entire army, or a large portion of your army, which is going to be difficult to do when you're under pressure. Viking War has begun. It is going to be a little bit in favor of HeRoMaRinE as a defender's advantage, right? As he also is going to have an upgrade advantage in just a second. There we go. He pushes that back.
Yeah, that's actually pretty nice, and something that MarineLorD didn't do in this game is get that ship weapon upgrade, right? And he's on his way to vehicle plating now, but so is HeRoMaRinE. So yeah, he's kind of continuing with +2 vehicle weapons, whereas HeRoMaRinE swapped into ship weapons, and I think that's a good call because these Viking wars are extremely important. I think anything you can get to help out those Vikings is going to be really critical. So kind of surprised. I mean, the +2 vehicle weapons is a lot for the siege tanks, but just surprised because it does feel like this game is so much about those Vikings at the moment.
Sensor tower, though. I didn't even notice
middle of the map. Yeah.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, HeRoMaRinE, if he does move out with an army, it would be seen, and he'd either respond to the army itself, which is fine, or he'd just move over to one of the bases that is no longer defended. So it seems like an overly aggressive sensor tower, but the way that MarineLorD is controlling the game, it makes absolute sense for him. And he is still controlling the game, although the Viking War is going to be, I think, closer than that game number 1, just because HeRoMaRinE didn't lose control of his 3rd base, right? And that's what really changed game 1 up. So I guess maybe control might be the bigger issue. That was an unfortunate Liberator, wasn't it?
Hey, if that sense tower isn't being killed, I don't think it can be overly aggressive, you know? Like, you know, the day it gets killed off, then we can be like, okay, maybe a little bit, you know, too crazy. He is going to kill Marines to make supply for our units. So MarineLorD can't even find a bad fight. Has to kill his own Marines and just adding on more Vikings. And I mean, he's going to go up to like 29 Vikings on the map, couple Ravens mixed in. All right, Zombie, do you want to bring your question back from before, like Ravens versus the rest of this? It's obviously way better setup, right? To maybe do it this time around from MarineLorD if he really wants to make a big bid into a higher Raven count.
I like what he's doing now. I don't think you go into that actually like Ravens from here. I think just the 2 for an anti-armor missile or a couple of interference matrix is gonna be worth it. There's going to be a kind of silly number of Vikings, man. It is right now favorable, very much so for MarineLorD. As HeRoMaRinE takes the fight, he's gonna regret it. It's 27 Vikings for MarineLorD as he gets a decent concave, he gets an anti-armor missile, and it is still keeping strong in that count, and he's going to push the Vikings MarineLorD back, and if that happens, he just moves forward with Liberators, which eventually are going to be on the way. He's only got 1 right now, but He's producing 8 more Vikings. You could probably fit a Liberator in there too.
Yeah, I think you can make like 6 Vikings and 2 Libs. I think that would also be okay. Use the tank. We're gonna have this fight breaking out. Is HeRoMaRinE get a target fire down the Liberator? Because actually, if you don't, it's gonna keep on killing siege tanks, right? Marines come in. Now the tanks, you could argue, are maybe a bit far back, and so HeRoMaRinE, is he kind of getting rid of these Vikings? Yes, he is. He wins out that fight. +2 ship weapon CG against +1.
Yes, the upgrades are actually impactful here. And of course, the Fair's advantage, probably the most impactful thing, is the Vikings are getting a little bit faster here for HeRoMaRinE. Maybe a little overzealous, tanks siege up, Marines take out a couple of Vikings, but I guess HeRoMaRiNE's back to winning the air war. If MarineLorD had gotten to a Liberator faster, it looks like it was maybe lost in transit or something like that. There could have been a couple more tanks killed, but I guess he's never really going to push in too deep, it looks like, because they're just matching each other's air so darn well. And MarineLorD is finally adding on his +2 ship weapons. Also, a couple extra Ravens, I guess because they died, right? They certainly can still be impactful. HeRoMaRinE going for a lot of Liberators, and that's going to be the really tough point of this game, I think, is like, I do think you need a couple Liberators, obviously, but then you never want to lose out in the actual Viking war, which currently HeRoMaRinE is just by a little bit. The Marines are going to try and help out, but they really can't. It is literally a 1 Viking difference.
This time around, the tanks were a bit better. Maybe not even the tanks were a bit better positioned, but the Vikings were just close to the tanks, right?
Yeah.
You know, they was just within range to really be protected, so Marines couldn't get involved there. And we have 5 Liberators all at once. I mean, the thing is, MarineLorD has the top left 2 bases, so even though he's a bit down supply now, he's gonna end up maxing out and having more bases. But there is the bottom right that now MarineLorD isn't really looking at it all, so I guess he just gets set up here as HeRoMaRinE. And I mean, ZG, basically this entire map is covered in sensor towers. This is, you know, people are seeing every little movement at the moment, and it's going to be hard to really deny a bunch of stuff. As I say that, 2 Marines actually going to shut down some SCV mining.
I cannot wait for these sensor towers to come up, you know, because right now it's not quite all covered. All right,
yeah, I know.
But it will be soon.
Can HeRoMaRinE also build one like the bottom of his main base, and MarineLorD 2 at the top, just for completion's sake?
Well, MarineLorD's 2 Marines scouting this is a pretty big deal, because, I mean, yeah, that first game, it seemed like he never scouted the top left, and if these weren't here, then maybe he never scouts the bottom right. But he repositions and catches HeRoMaRinE a little off guard. It's going to be a dead command center. The Viking war once again underway, very even, 21-21, but anti-air missile eventually is going to impact the fight. I mean, HeRoMaRiNE's still very confidently taking it, is a little bold.
I love those Liberators on siege, and they are such a threat when, you know, the -3 armor is on those Vikings.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the splash damage initially isn't really that much, but then you have -3 armor, and actually adds up to be quite a lot. So, yeah, I love the Liberator on siege, and sort of be like, yeah, you want to fight this? You're going to take some damage if you're chasing into me, because obviously those Vikings then naturally clump up if you're chasing somebody down.
Dude, I've loved MarineLorD's production tab because it's basically a mech player. It's been a mech player for the last 2 minutes. And like HeRoMaRiNE's like, don't I have to make Marines? And it's like, I don't think you do.
You know what's funny, right? MarineLorD's lost 36 Marines, and he's got 16 on the map. He's made less Marines this game than HeRoMaRiNE has lost. By about half. That's crazy.
Oh, but it seems to be the right call. He's now really hardcore winning the Viking War, 25-14. HeRoMaRiNE forced to completely disengage back over his Marines, which, hey, it is pretty safe right now. This means that MarineLorD can continue to encroach. Nothing else happening on the map. No Liberator harassment. Drops would be fruitless since it's upgraded planetaries. It is all about winning this air war. And it feels like, I mean, there's been a couple of back and forth. There's been a couple of victories for HeRoMaRiNE, yes. But I feel like I actually like MarineLorD's control of this, right? Like, it's kind of crazy for me to say that coming in is just knowing HeRoMaRiNE is that really solid guy. But I guess how many games does he play in the situation?
I think it's the gas. You know, you got the top left gases running already as MarineLorD. HeRoMaRiNE only just got one of these bases up now. I think that gas has just allowed MarineLorD to rebuild a lot more of the Vikings than what HeRoMaRiNE was able to afford. I mean, MarineLorD actually lost 72 Vikings this game to the 58. He's also lost a few less Liberators, so then it really just comes down to gas mining, right? And I think that's why HeRoMaRiNE's just been, like, multiple times I've seen him hit, like, 0 gas. Like, he's scraping the bottom of the barrel to try and get as much out as possible. He moves into position here. The Marines are going to try and join in the fight. The Liberators are set up. The tanks will not siege because the Marines are moving in. And HeRoMaRiNE just won this fight. Yeah.
I guess so. I think HeRoMaRiNE just had more of his Vikings actually in place Maybe? Yeah, actually, hold on here. Question mark. At the end of the day, MarineLorD's going to have overall more Vikings than he is going to take this fight, in fact. He's still
then more Vikings show up from the other side.
God damn it, he was so close. Oh, my God. Jeez, okay, all right. Well, this is just getting silly. MarineLorD, though, ending up with a huge bank at the end of that fight. Even though their supplies keep kind of similar, MarineLorD should be able to remax faster on those better units. HeRoMaRinE did a decent job just now denying some mining and importantly some gas mining with some Liberators, but it really did not last long. He's going to take the moment, you know, that MarineLorD pushes back, though, and actually take these bases, which is pretty huge. We could have another max out.
Yeah, I mean, if
I
guess if you get these bases, then you're kind of back on the board and being able to produce. The question is, do you win the next fight? Because MarineLorD's already had again that gas top left, and you're just now getting it bottom right. That's kind of my question. He's got a Viking lead here, MarineLorD to start. Upgrades are even across the board now as well. He's got one Raven mixed in here. I don't think he's got the energy to be impactful just yet. It flies forward. Oh, sorry, he already had the anti-armor missile off. I'm blind. As here we go, Vikings are fighting, and it looks as though MarineLorD is just straight up winning the sky battle. There aren't even Marines in position just yet, ZG.
No, it was so awkward for HeRoMaRinE. I think he realized at the last second, oh, I'm not winning this, and then he had Vikings rallying in that he really could not afford to lose. So he's down at almost a third of the Vikings of his opponents. And he doesn't even have... his supply is just straight up lower. That is the problem. He is down 40 army supply. You can't win with Marines. You can't win with tanks. You can't win with the Vikings. A Banshee was made, and not on accident. It's going to help clear up these tanks. I feel like MarineLorD's done it, man. I know it's not quite over, but kind of feels like it's getting over.
It's getting there, right? He's going to deny this base again. We just talked about how big that might have been for HeRoMaRinE if he was to get it up. And for the minute or two that it was a big deal. But now denied, and so... big deal for MarineLorD is 24 minutes deep. We are seeing MarineLorD. I mean, now HeRoMaRinE's rebuilding on much cheaper armies, right? He's only building 4 Vikings. He's not, you know, going into a lot more Marine production. And so HeRoMaRinE does not have as good an army as he once had. I mean, the only thing I would say is that's a lot of Marines. And there's not a ton of tanks out for MarineLorD because it's only 6. But it's not like there's a lot of tanks for HeRoMaRinE either. So, yeah, it's a bit rough. MarineLorD has so much money as well, so right, 6k in the bank. If this comes down to being super scrappy or so, MarineLorD can also just then, you know, crank out what, like 120 Marines. You know, he's got some money to play with still. CG.
Some quick math. Perhaps the last stand here, coming in from 270, looks impressive, but the army of MarineLorD is just superior, right? The Liberator's still alive, helping out. The last couple of tanks still alive on the bottom side, and the Vikings will absolutely win that air war. GG is called.